Luka Nation, you are in for a treat. Episode 915 of
I like
Lucas
treats.
Tigers.
Is it like
You like
candy?
treats? What's your favorite candy?
Oh
No,
man,
don't.
when I was younger, I would say like Baby
Twix.
Ruth or Butterfinger. I like Twix. Asking me what my favorite candy is like asking me like I don't even know. There's so many.
Chocolate candy
Like what's
specifically.
my favorite baseball card at a show, or what's my favorite card? Like I couldn't give you just one. So I like so many candies.
So we had the Ukrainian family staying with us, and first they went to Frankfurt from Ukraine. And I remember in Europe, like their toothpaste, I don't know if people know this, it's black licorice flavored
Ooh, hey
toothpaste.
now.
It's terrible. They love black, like my Finnish buddy loves black licorice.
Black licorice, huh?
It's terrible.
Black licorice. I mean, of
But
all the flavors, that's not the right one.
we talked yesterday about Luka top 25, where he's going to end up and how that's going to impact his cards. Today, we want to talk about Fanatics announced that they're getting into live shopping. So I want to hear your take. We have Loop, we have eBay, we have Card Shop Live, we have Whatnot, obviously, which is, I would say, probably has most of the market share at this time, although they do other stuff like coins. They do. But today, Fanatics announced that they're getting into live shopping. You lived through the QVC era. Who knows? Don West might have actually asked you to sell Beanie Babies on his show.
Yeah.
So I want to hear your take about that. I also was kind of going through a deal on Facebook. Somebody, posted Optic Hollow Mahomes rookie auto, and I proposed to trade for my Pele. He went and looked up my last Pele comp. It was $5,000, even though the previous ones were 15 and 20,000. And he was asking for more than his comps, than recent comps on that card. And I always find that interesting when in a deal, one side is willing to ask for more than recent comps while referencing your own recent comp. I always find that interesting to hear your thoughts on that. And we'll go a billion other directions after.
I mean, yeah, man. So let's start with that one. I mean, it's sort of like one of those interesting things that's going to happen with the hobby. You know what I mean? And you know, data, price points, tying it all together, it's going to be an interesting thing. And the more liquid a card, I guess the less susceptible you are to what you fell victim to with that Pele card, right? Because your card is the one that's $5,000, and maybe you found the best bargain on it in the world, right? Because it was $15,000 and $20,000 before that, and you just happened to get it for $5,000 because who knows? Maybe you got a bargain.
It ended on Christmas night.
Yeah, and so you're gonna now have to tell a whole bunch of stories about how it's not really five. It was Christmas night. You found it in a manger. It was an immaculate, conception that the card just popped into your hands. You don't even know how it happened with $5,000.
A lot of good points.
But he's got an Optic Hollow Mahomes that sold 50 times this month. And you know what it is. Like, there's no creativity to it.
But he's asking for $4,000 more than the recent comp.
Right. So he gets to be creative his own way because even though there's comps, those comps are before he won the AFC Championship game. And now it's worth double. It's double. It's worth double. Yours, unfortunately, you're going to have to wait for the next one to sell and hope that it sells for 12 or 13. And then even if it does, the person who you're negotiating with can be like, yeah, but that was the outlier. The 5 is the real sale.
Well, and I don't love doing this. I've never, I could right hand the guy to say I've never used someone's death as a storytelling mechanism for their cards going up in value, but the card was purchased before Pele passed away. I don't actually know if that impacts price at all, but it is interesting how we use comps when they're in our favor, but we sort of avoid them when they're not. And we also, I think with comps, how you list the item, what other items are ending at the same time. With jersey number cards, it's very interesting because obviously jersey number demand a premium, and we've done this episode before. We've said, depending on the card, about 1.5 to 2 times the price of the card if it was a jersey number. But we need to remember it's not always in the description, right? And different cards are different where sometimes you can't even see if it's the jersey number. So another card I picked up was a Kobe card, jersey numbered, but it was mislabeled. It wasn't actually listed as a jersey number, so it went cheap. But I only think about comps when I'm making deals, and it's interesting how it's the same cycle sort of repeats itself, where people use comps when they're in their favor, but sort of avoid them when they're not.
I mean, so why don't you do that? Because you can't get a job done?
Jobs not.
You can't get a deal done? I mean, why don't you do it? Why don't you say, no, you're wrong. Your comp is high. My comp is it should be more than the 20,000 because those were comps when Pele was alive.
Well, can I be honest? I probably did do that. I probably did do that before I started the podcast. Now that we have the podcast, I don't even want to in these deals make someone feel insulted because I don't want it to be kind of what our brand is about. So I don't really actually haggle or negotiate that much at this stage in my career.
Okay. I mean, I like it. I don't like to haggle either, but then it sounds like you just were trying to do a deal with somebody and it just wasn't going to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just said sounds good.
I mean, it sounds good. And then done. Finished, done. Well, dude, listen, some deals are not meant to happen. You know what I mean? Some deals are not meant to happen. And unfortunately, you've seen this now. You've seen this a couple of times. You've seen it play out. You saw it play out, remember, with cards you had at the National, where you were bringing cards and you were showing, and you're like, hey, this is what I value it at. And they were like, okay, well, let's look it up. And they looked at the last comp, which was your card, which was always the one you bought. What would you have? A Soto Gold out of 50 you had? Remember that, if memory serves, right? You had all those cards and you were like, yeah, that's mine. That's the one you're looking at. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't use that. I got that cheap. Look what it sold for before that. That's why I got it at a bargain. Now, I can't give it to you at a bargain. So this seems to be kind of what you run into a lot. And I'm sure you're not the only one. How do you get a bargain? It is the problem that we talked about yesterday, flipping, the greater fool theory, all that stuff. Maybe the flipping can't happen on those low liquidity cards. Maybe the flipping is for stuff that is highly liquid. It's not for a pop 1 or pop 2 Soto Gold auto out of 50, because that may be the greater fool theory, the zero-sum game. You're buying it lesser than the last person, but if you're trying to sell it, only person who's going to take it off your hands is someone who's going to get it lesser than what you paid. But a Mahomes that has this constant cycle and lots of sales is something that can be played by flippers based on performance. And your Pele might not be.
I actually think that, how Mahomes was the poster child for cards go down after you win a Super Bowl? Mm-hmm. I'm seeing so much Mahomes inventory. You know how markets mature and markets become smarter, right?
Yep.
So sort of the opportunities that might have worked in the past, the people know about them, so they adapt. So what I've seen is in the lead up to the Super Bowl, even though I don't know, are you getting a vibe that most people think the Eagles will win, or most people think that the Chiefs will win? Or do you think it's kind of 50-50?
I think the lean is Chiefs. But here in the Northeast, a lot of people think the Eagles are going to win, even though they haven't beaten anybody.
I've seen a lot of really nice collector items Mahomes either be on auction this week, either be posted on Facebook groups this week, story sales this week. And I'm wondering if the market has matured and gotten smarter where they know that a dip comes after the Super Bowl and people are trying to get ahead of it. But I actually think that an even bigger run-up is going to happen if he wins the Super Bowl. Because if you think about what's happened now, over the last 6 months, Mahomes cards have been sold off almost 50% compared to Jalen Hurts, who's up 100%, right?
Yep.
So you've had basically an influx of supply, a lot of people selling off, they weren't in Mahomes for the right reason, or they didn't believe, whatever the reason is, or the market was tanking, whatever. And now I actually think, regardless win or lose, but specifically if there's a win, the next 6 months for Mahomes cards, I think you see a bounce back. I don't know if it's 100% back to, what the prices were last September, but I actually think we see the opposite trend happen.
I mean, it's fair. It's fair. Remember, the first time he won the Super Bowl, his cards are more like Hurts. They were moving up in anticipation of that Super Bowl win. And then when it happened, boom, you had the event that everybody was holding for to hope to make money. And the people who weren't buying him for a long-term hold immediately listed it for sale, right? I believe that's what happens with Hurts if Hurts wins. Okay? And that's why we compare Hurts to Mahomes' run up the first time he won the Super Bowl. Very different analysis for Mahomes. Mahomes has
Correct.
been on a downswing for a while, and people are still trying to sell. People are still trying to get out. And I think your analysis is, well, if he wins, he's been down. Now you have a 2-time Super Bowl winning champ that still has a ton of room
Career
in front
left.
of him. You have so much more that he could potentially do and add to his legacy. I've said all along, it sets the floor a little bit higher. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of a leg up. I don't know about a huge run. The whole market is down from where it was when Mahomes was at its high point. Also, part of the run on him was because everything was sort of running.
The NFL market in general is a very scary market. It's not a market that's been standing on, four strong legs for eternity. It's a relatively new market.
That's true. But I mean, what I think you're seeing with Mahomes, and I know it's because everybody who has any money in the hobby listens to us. I know there are a lot of great hobby content out there, but you guys don't have to listen to anybody else. You can just listen to us. You'll get everything here. But what's funny about Mahomes is the same rationale that we gave as a hesitation for putting your money in young AFC quarterbacks actually applied to Mahomes. And I think it tempered the buying and the pricing on Mahomes because he was facing the same problem that Mac Jones was facing. He was facing the same problem that Trevor Lawrence or, a Josh Allen faced. He had the same gauntlet. Sure, those guys had to go through Mahomes. He doesn't have to go through himself, although some would say that's your toughest battle in life is battling yourself. My partner here knows all about it. So, but here's the fun, right?
I am my own worst enemy.
He still has a gauntlet to go through in the AFC, and I think when you heard enough Burrow talk and how Burrow is him, and maybe Trevor Lawrence was him, and all these people were him, the thought was, well, maybe Mahomes, who we all thought was him before, maybe he's not him. Maybe we should be more careful, and maybe that caused some of the pricing to come down because even Mahomes would have to navigate the gauntlet that is this AFC with all of these quarterbacks. But if he wins...
How much does media matter? Because the whole season, it was, how is he going to win without Tyreek Hill? Remember that whole narrative? That was one of the craziest narratives I've ever heard.
That was the offseason, but obviously he kind of got rid of that because he had better stats during the year with basically... no one to throw
with Valdez-Scantling and Smith-Schuster, and then they got Kadarius Toney. Like with this,
I've said it a bunch of times. It's the tight end league.
Yeah, but that's not what the narrative was just
not at all.
7 months ago. It was, how is he going to do this without Tyreek Hill? We're about to find out that, and then Tyreek said something about he's happy with Tua, and they were like, it was cryptic.
And they can't sign anyone else, and they lost him because they paid Mahomes too much. Mahomes was almost like a heel turn. It was almost the fans should blame Mahomes for making so much money and signing such a big deal because by signing him, they couldn't sign Tyreek, and now they don't have any more room, so that team is done. The window on Mahomes is finished. You're not going to be able to see any more championships out of him and that team because they paid him too much money. They can't bring in any talent. Well, it looks like they potentially could win a Super Bowl here, and that changes the entire narrative, sure.
I would be using this time, and this is not because I have a Mahomes card. I promise you guys, this is the narrative I've had for quite some time. Mm-hmm. When they win, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 2 or 3 or 4 score game. That's the type of win you're going to see that with the Chiefs over the Eagles. You're going to see the narrative flipped, and he's going to be talked about as the top 5 quarterback of all time, possibly with like what will make him number 1 of all time, and can he beat Brady? That's going to be the next 6 months of NFL media on ESPN, Fox Sports, whatever you guys watch, and I think we're going to see a type of Jordan-esque next 2, 3, 4, 5 years from this team.
Man, top 5 QB is tough. I think what you're saying is, could he potentially be there? Could he potentially?
If he wins the Super Bowl, he's top 5 of all time.
Right now?
Yeah, no question. 2 Super Bowls, 2 MVPs, 5 straight AFC Championship games, and the guy's 26 years old.
I mean, Jim Kelly went to 4 straight Super Bowls. No one thinks of him as a top 5 quarterback of all time.
I don't think he has the stats to support that.
I mean, the stats, it's funny how the stats matter until they don't matter. And it depends on what kind of argument you're having. The stats matter and they don't. You know what I mean?
Like, so here's top 10 quarterbacks of all time. Peyton Manning, Johnny Unitas, Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, Drew Brees, Dan Marino, John Elway, Bart Starr.
Yeah.
If Mahomes win this Super Bowl, he's on the level of Aaron Rodgers, probably better because he has more career left.
Okay, so let's take Brady at 1, right? And if you want to, you could just 2, 3 Manning and Montana.
Sure.
Okay, so
Montana on that list? He should be. Whoever made this list
Yeah.
and didn't put Montana as a psychopath.
Okay, now, 2-time NFL champion, 3-time NFL MVP Johnny Unitas. All right, so not there yet. All right, but we're getting there. So Unitas. I mean, it's interesting, right?
Brady, Montana. It's not as deep as it seems. That's the
funny
crazy.
because next I would be actually thinking about somebody like Brett Favre, right? Honestly, I'd be thinking about 3-time NFL MVP Brett Favre. I'd be thinking about him with all
It's
his
obvious that Mahomes is better than Brett Favre because he could do everything Brett Favre does, but he wins.
I mean, Favre won too. I mean, Favre won the Super Bowl also, but only once. So it's funny. It's funny as you think about it. I mean, look, it depends on how you do the. It's just like our Kobe discussion, right? I mean, Terry Bradshaw, no one's gonna think of as a fantastic quarterback, but the dude won 4 Super Bowls. You know what I mean? Super Bowl 9, 10, 13, 14. Like, that's Terry Bradshaw.
We've never seen this before, though. That's people. I think humans struggle seeing
Marino never won a Super Bowl,
processing in real time.
Yeah.
What we've seen in the NFL is incredible quarterback talent, a lack of winning, or a good quarterback that knows how to win. Brady, right? Mm-hmm. So Manning was probably the closest to a great quarterback talent and won a little bit, but towards the end of his career, we haven't seen both. Who's been just this insane athlete who's just changes the game, who's puts up stats, who's incredible, but also wins? It's in history hasn't been equated. And that's what happened with Jordan, dude.
I mean, you've been saying Mahomes is Jordan since like 3 years ago. If he wins another championship, okay, he's now a multi-time champion.
Jordan broke the game, man, because before Jordan, it was Kareem who was like, okay, he had the sky hook and he wins. He plays within himself. Jordan was this flash. He was dunking all over people, contact, shit talking. But he also won 6 championships. So we love Jordan because he's a winner, but no one played the game like him.
It's recency bias. No one played the game like him. The game is played very differently for Mahomes. It's a different game. Like, it's completely just like Curry is different. I mean, Otto Graham won more Super Bowls than Mahomes is going to win if he wins 2. Do you even know who Otto Graham is?
I've heard of him. I've never got a chance, obviously, to see him.
It depends, man. So here's what I'll give you.
What's the chicken or the egg? Does the game change because of a Jordan or Mahomes, or does a Mahomes or a Jordan change the game? I would argue Jordan changed the game.
Who knows?
I would argue Steph changed the game. I would argue Mahomes changed the game. It was either a running quarterback or a pocket quarterback.
Yeah.
Mahomes is both. What?
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm fine with that. But what happens is recency bias. You're like, oh, he does it better than anybody ever did it. Well, you know what? The way the game was played, yeah, maybe he changed the way the game was played. But the way the game was played was very, very different then. And top 5 is tough. Right after this year, if he retires, I mean, Barry Sanders, great running back. It's kind of like a similar thing, right? Like, he retired at the top of his game, right? Didn't win championships, but retired at the top of his game.
I don't think he retires, obviously.
Yeah, but it's a great conversation. I mean, I saw a post. Is he a first ballot Hall of Famer if he retires? And I think the answer is yes, because you have, MVP, you have multiple Super Bowls, and just, always going to the AFC Championship game. I think just this 5-year stretch would potentially be enough, even if he just played out at like a mediocre level. It's amazing because
5 AFC championships, 2 MVPs.
I think it's a bigger thing than what you're talking about. I think it's bigger. What's funny about it is it does show the change in the league and in the game, because I got to tell you guys who are listening to this, right? Part of the reason I don't want to say I'm struggling with this is because when I collected in the 90s football, not just the 80s, but I collected in the 90s football, right? Nobody wanted a Troy Aikman card. When you were pulling inserts, when you were, Zenith is coming out now. I can't believe they didn't put a Z-Team insert in it. Guys, go look back at some of the Z-Team foil inserts.
You love that card.
94, 95, 96, all sports, just great rainbow foil type cards. But when I was opening Zenith boxes in 1996, they said it was Marshall Falk rookie, but it wasn't. It was 95 was his rookie. It said rookie on the side, but it was fake, fugazi. Those cards, you wanted Emmitt Smith. Emmitt was the most expensive one. Seriously, Emmitt. Then Dan Marino, right? And then Jerry Rice and Barry Sanders and then Joe Montana. But you didn't want Troy Aikman. right? You didn't want John Elway, right? He actually won towards the end of the 90s and became a little more popular. You didn't want Brett Favre. He actually won later on too. But what's funny about it is the reason, look how gorgeous that card is. The Z team on it with the rainbow. They call this a Dufex, Pinnacle Dufex technology. You know, it's a really cool, this was like when everybody was trying to one up the shiny.
Yep. So this came out in 95. 93 was when shiny started, and then
then all of a sudden you had chrome and refractors and all kinds of insanity that happened, right? So I love that card. I own that card. I have the whole set, Z teams.
You do? Is that in the famous basement?
That's in the basement. I have a baseball
set. By the way,
set.
Lucas Tigers owners, if you want utility that we're announcing right here, never before done, you get a tour, maybe on Halloween, of Cage's house, and
you have to sign an assumption of risk. It's not a finished basement. It's an unfinished basement. It's like my brain in there. No,
if you've seen Jordan's house and you've seen walkthroughs, this doesn't even compare. This is 1,000 times better. The basement. It's got a cigar lounge, a big screen TV, arcade. It's got a machine that actually dispenses candy.
Whose house is this?
Candy. You say Twix, and it shoots out.
I would love that. That would be great. We need some sponsorship money. I get that.
It has one of those old school Coke machines, 10 cents, a Coke and a Smile.
I want a freestyle machine. I told you. Somebody out there has a line on a freestyle machine. Like you go to the movies, you put the cup in, and it's like you can get whatever flavor, you put whatever you want in there. I get that in my house. Forget it. I'll never leave. But no, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, first of all, the league's not as old as baseball is, and the merger. Look, we've had 50-something years of Super Bowls. So Mahomes has been around for 10% of the NFL Super Bowl era, right? Brady was there playing for 40% of the Super Bowl era. It's pretty crazy to think about that when you think about what he's accomplished. But just to go back to when I collected in the 90s, quarterbacks were not the dominant thing. Like you could invest in something other than a quarterback. It wasn't such a quarterback-driven sport, and they weren't putting up the numbers. Now they won Super Bowls. Terry Bradshaw 4 Super Bowls, but his numbers, his ancillary numbers, are not going to even approach.
Who would you be investing in? Running backs.
Emmitt Smith, 100%.
We used to never invest in guards. We used to invest in centers. Kareem, Bill Russell, Wilt, and then comes this guy, third pick, UNC Jordan.
Yeah, picked behind 2 centers, by the way. Picked behind Hakeem Olajuwon and Sam Bowie.
Flip the game on its head. It's like, who is this guy? He's gonna go and meet these big centers in the paint and dunk on them. I kind of like it.
Next year, center picked first. Patrick Ewing.
Patrick
Ewing. No, so I mean, listen, it's a great discussion. I hate Mahomes because I'm a Raider fan. I will root every year for us to take him down and beat him, but his legacy will be. Listen, one championship could be a fluke.
Yep.
You're Joe Flacco, right? You are Trent Dilfer. You are any of those guys. You always have hey, Mahomes won 1 Super Bowl, but so did that guy, right? So did Matthew Stafford, right? 2 Super Bowls. Now you're up there with some greats. You're up there with quarterbacks that are, you're starting to talk about statues outside of the stadiums, right? So
you probably never experienced this, but have you ever seen keynote speaker, someone talking on stage, and you could sense that they're nervous, and you get nervous?
Maybe. Yeah, I can see that.
It's because we have these things in our brain. They're called mirror receptors. And this is why the famous idiom is monkey see, monkey do, right?
Famous idiom.
Monkey poop all over you. So we talk about these changes, the change in the tide. We used to invest in centers and went to guards. We used to invest in running backs. Then now we invest in quarterbacks. The league used to be, mid-range jumpers, and now it's 3-point shooting. The reason that I think that happens is because beneath all of this beauty are very primitive creatures who need a pioneer, somebody who could lead us and make us see that this is possible. I believe that's Jordan. Mm-hmm. I believe that's Kobe, and I believe that's Mahomes in their respective sports.
Okay. I mean, listen, it's easy, and I guess people are probably looking for that person now. Brady retires. Let's talk about the next Brady, right?
I would also say, did we ever talk about the next Kareem?
Yeah. I think Magic and Bird were talked about as the next, let's call them, people who were going to carry the sport. They were that generation, right? Magic and Bird. They weren't the next Kareem because they weren't the next centers. They weren't throwing up skyhooks. They were the next version. And guess what? Just because I don't want everyone in the world to think Mahomes is some new thing that's never happened before, Magic playing the game the way Magic played the game
I think Magic's great.
A change of the game also. You know what I mean?
I agree.
And he was in the league for a while before Jordan came and changed it to, it wasn't just showtime, passing, and flash. It was now above the rim, dunking, athleticism, and that kind of stuff. So there are players that come and change the game. The interesting thing for Mahomes is going to be, and why I think he has a chance to go down as one of the all-time greats, is it harkens me back to a conversation you and I had several hundred episodes ago when we were talking about tennis. And no, it wasn't me shitting on fringe sports. It was talking about how the greats of tennis, they are only able to elevate themselves to that great conversation when there is a foil. It's hard to talk about how great Sampras was without immediately going to his battles with Agassi. It's hard to talk about even, Federer was amazing for the longest time, but he wasn't thought of as a great until Nadal rose up and challenged him.
Yep.
Right? We went into golf.
Manning and Brady, man, that was my era. I would argue
Brady,
that that debate was all of 2000 to 2010.
Tiger had Phil. You know what I mean? Like, Tiger was running away with it, but you needed somebody to come up and, okay, now you got a battle. You got somebody who's going to push him to greatness. Believe it or not, I hope Mahomes stays where he is. I hope he plays there forever. I hope he stays in the AFC, and I hope that this AFC continues to be this juggernaut. I hope Joe Burrow continues to be as close to him as possible and pushes him, and that you do have a Brady Manning type of thing here, because I think that iron sharpens iron type of thing, that you push somebody to their, to be great.
Bird Magic. Bill Russell will, for sure. You see it all throughout the you see it all the way down. I think one thing with Magic that really hurt him was the health scare. I think that took away a little bit of his prime years when he could have really solidified his legacy. And I think a lot of people remember him by, the HIV thing, as much as it comes to cards, and unfortunately. Or as much as it comes to
yes, for the legacy, definitely. He was already in the league for well over a decade when that happened.
His rookie year, I think he played center, had like 42 and 10, game 7 of the finals, right?
But he started, his rookie is 1980 tops, right? So he started there, and the HIV, I think that was 1992, something like that. So 92, 93, something like that. So you're already in the league for quite some time, and his legacy outside. I mean, that talk show, he's still completely relevant now, beloved character.
90 before the 91 season, he was diagnosed. 11 years.
So there you go. So but just real interesting stuff. And yeah, obviously that hurt him.
I'm worried about tennis, man. You brought up tennis. I'm really worried about tennis. Who is tennis stars? Now, Djokovic is the last man standing. Nadal's getting beat up. And Djokovic is on his last legs, too.
Well, friend, right? Your friend, what's his name? Your friend
Alcaraz?
Carlos Alcaraz.
You better hope. Because other than that, these young guys can't even compete with the old folks who are basically in the retirement home and injured. So, Kyrgios, no shot.
Kyrgios. I like him because he's insane. But, I mean, listen, tennis has never been a widespread sport. It's never been something that was collected. It was never something that was widespread enough to have a collector base. And you know what's amazing? All collectors are fans, but not all fans are collectors. That is a sentence that I read in the announcement by Fanatics that they are going into live selling, the second topic. So that was me doing a very professional segue for those of you who are a little, you're all the way in the back there. A little segue there, because there are a lot of fans of tennis. That doesn't mean they're going to collect tennis cards. Okay, there are a lot of fans of soccer. Doesn't mean they're going to collect soccer cards. You guys have heard me do that. I'm not going to get beat up in my DMs again, but you understand what I'm saying. And I think Fanatics is hoping that they can turn their fan base into collectors, or convert as many of those fans who currently don't collect into collectors. I will say right off the bat, when I saw the headline without reading the article, the first thing that came to my brain was, I hope they do it the right way with some caution and being careful. And now let me unpack that for you. We've been able to operate in our hobby here without any real guidance, without any real scrutiny from the outside, right? And no regulations. Now, some would say that's a good thing, and some would say that's a bad thing, right? People are able to break however they like. And very rarely do you hear breakers referred to as blackjack dealers every once in a while. And we don't say that. Don't say that. It's not gambling.
They don't like
it's
that.
Just, it's not gambling. It's you
want to piss a breaker off? Try that one. They really don't like it.
Correct, right? So it's not. It's just we're opening cards. It's just somebody opening a card for somebody else live and the whole deal. And what I would say is, you called it, hey, QVC or Home Shopping Network. You invoked Don West. One of the things that I remember about that was, and something that's very different than what we see now on the apps you mentioned, is when you were buying something, you got what you bought, right? There was no lottery aspect to it. There was no roulette wheel. There was no, deal or no deal. There was no game show component to it. He went on, and they had to source 5,000 Snort the Bull beanie that was given away at the Chicago Bulls game. This way, when you clicked yes, or you called in and paid $29.99 for Snort the Bull, you got a Snort the Bull beanie. They did not have any shows where it was, okay, guys, we have 10,000 mystery packs of beanies, and you pay $20. You're not going to know what you get till it arrives cash on delivery at your door, or until we're charging your card, and you may get Snort, you may get Squeakers, you may get, Humphrey the camel, you may get Peanut the elephant, you may get Inky the octopus. Who the heck knows which one you're going to get? They didn't do that, right? And maybe they could have done it. Maybe they were afraid that people would complain and return the stuff. Who the heck knows, right? Maybe there are some consumer rules against doing that. I don't know what the fun thing is, but I did read the article, and I did read the first thing that was mentioned by the Fanatics rep about what they're planning on doing is breaking. Breaking is specifically mentioned. That's not all they're doing. I'm sure they want to have, but you read the title and you're like, well, this makes sense. Right? I mean, this is the way of the world here. Fanatics has a bunch of jerseys. They're going to go on and say, okay, who wants, this jersey? And maybe they have Micah Parsons sitting there for 2 hours selling Micah Parsons jerseys and talking about why he likes the jersey, why he picked number 11, what he did at Penn State, what he did this year, who's the quarterback he sacks the most, who's he need to still sack. He still needs a Brady jersey, and now he doesn't have one. I mean, so maybe that is a cool way of doing it. I'm going to have these athletes and sell, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they can do a cool thing where Mike is going to sign one of every 10 that gets sold because he's sitting there and signs, oh, by the way, little bonus. We don't know who's going to get that. That's a cool little add-on because you're not, you're getting at least what you paid for. Where it gets a little interesting is Fanatics is a gambling company. They now, unlike any of the other entities that we're talking about, they have gambling licenses. I think they just opened a casino, right?
They're trying to buy parks right by me, right by my home turf.
Now, there's additional regulation that comes with that. There's additional scrutiny that comes with that. There are gaming boards. There are interesting things that come with that. And I don't know how their live is going to be done. I don't know whether they're going to treat it the way sort of like a Whatnot does, where it's like, okay, we have independent contractors. We're just providing a platform for them. Are they going to vet them out? Are they going to have breakers that are like Fanatics approved? I remember walking into, hobby stores where Upper Deck certified, shop. Are they going to have Fanatics approved? Are they going to be doing some sort of licensing of them? Are they going to... There's a lot of questions, and I'm sure they'll do it the right way. But to me, hearing the announcement made me think of so many things. It's all good because it's all a way to advance the hobby and get more eyeballs on the hobby and have more people involved, more fans becoming collectors. So
Let's break that down.
Shoot,
it's good for the whole. It's good for the growth of the hobby in terms of dollars and participants. More than likely, it's bad or negative towards the individual prices of cards.
Why?
Well, I'm just going back in history and I'm kind of making assumptions here because with all of these new people comes a ton of new supply, a ton of new cards printed, and a lot of supply takes away from, obviously not the vintage cards, the mantles and all that, but it does take away from the value of today's products.
I'll tell you, the first time people really paid attention to the prices being paid for Mickey Mantle cards in the 80s, when there was mass proliferation of the other stuff. And the reason why there was mass proliferation in 89, 1991, 92 was because all the new entrants into the hobby. Call it Beckett bringing in their pricing guide in 84, or all these other companies coming in, and the popularity of cards in general, Home Shopping Network, whatever it is.
So comps, comps, Beckett guide back then, new products, more companies, Fleer and Upper Deck, all these more companies, more products, more innovation with products like Chromium. That brings people in. They start at the bottom of the food chain. They buy up they buy up singles, and then they're like, wait, let me get a little more educated. And as they get more educated, they go for the rarer stuff, the Mantles, the vintage, the Bill Russells.
So maybe what Fanatics will layer onto this, maybe not on their breaking app, but maybe somewhere else, is an education component. It's not just a hobby thing, right? Let's say you like wine, right? And you want to invest in wine. The first thing you're going to invest in probably is the stuff you drink, the stuff you're consuming. But the more you get involved in it, the more you dive deep into it, the more you realize, okay, that $2 Chuck that Andrew likes so much is not the thing that you want to invest in your home cellar. And maybe you start off with a little bit of vino. Maybe, you start off, okay, I like white wine. And then you realize maybe white wine, we're not talking about 47 Cheval Blanc here. That's not the stuff you want to cellar for too long. And then you start looking into, some Russian River stuff, some Oregon stuff, some stuff that's American, little Pinot Noir.
I once floated down the Russian River in a tube. It's a fun little Sunday up in the redwoods in Northern California.
But you realize those don't have the shelf life. So you start going into California, some fruit bombs, some 14, 15% alcoholic cult wines. All right. Some of those have some tenure. Your Harlan Estate, your Screaming Eagles, your Schriegels. Eventually you wind up trying to buy Burgundies.
You refine your palate.
You want some Latache. You want some DRC. You want some good stuff, right? You want some first growths. So an 82 vintage Lafite. You want.
Are you fiending for a wine sponsorship?
Yeah, man. 100%.
PWCC doesn't sell that on their auction.
Yeah, I know. I have a wine collection also. I'm bourbon. I can talk about bourbon. Why I'm doing this and why I'm going through all this fun stuff is because it's not a hobby thing. It's not just oh wow, Fanatics coming in, people are gonna get screwed because they're gonna buy the wrong stuff. They're gonna buy all this mass-produced stuff. There's mass-produced stuff everywhere, right? Hess trucks are produced all the time, right? Awesome. People go and buy the Hess trucks, but you know what? The Hess trucks that are being produced now, people are buying them and putting them away and thinking, well, my son's gonna have a whole run of Hess trucks from 2000 to 2020. Well, guess what? Because people are doing that, the ones from the 60s are actually worth money. Because people weren't buying them and keeping them, or buying them and letting their kids play with them. It's the same kind of thing, right? It's the same kind of anything that's collectible, anything that's there. You want to buy a watch, right? There's some really cool, older watches. It's. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know.
So they're competing in live shopping. You're CEO of trading cards for Fanatics. Do you lobby to buy a grading company? Bring a grading company in house? I know I'm putting you on the spot. I do this with Cage sometimes, just because we're a radio show, we're a daily talk show. It's interesting to get it's interesting to get someone's first take, and then obviously Cage, thinks
so right
about
off
it.
The bat, my answer is no. Because I don't think it's something that they need immediately, right? If their goal is to break cards and sell break spots to people and then give people those cards, then right now, grading the card, them being involved in third-party grading right at the outset while they're getting that established is not something that needs to be done. Now, if you're talking to me about full-on goals, it seems pretty clear that there are roadmaps for the superpowers of the world, right? There's nuclear proliferation that goes on when America and Russia want to be the big guys on the block. They just continue to stockpile warheads, right? They continue to, and they're going to have the whole supply line. They can build it, they can store it, they can do the whole deal. You see a company like Collectors, right? Who you can take your raw card and send it to them. They will grade it. Then during the grading process, you can click a button and store it in the Collector's vault. Click another button and sell it through Golden's auctions. It is a full service thing once you get that raw
Turnkey.
card done.
One-stop shop.
One-stop shop, all that fun stuff. And you see PWCC starting to do a similar, send us your raw card. We have relationships with the grading companies.
Yep.
We'll get your card graded for you at a discount. And
so just for people listening, one is internal in-house, the other is with partners external. Both have pluses and minuses.
Fanatics gets the benefit. Sometimes it's great to be the first to market. Sometimes it's good to be the first mover. But sometimes it's good to be the third and watch the first two compete against each other and see where the pitfalls are, see which one, is doing it right, see which, especially when 1 and 2 to the market are doing it with a different method of doing it. One is trying to take everything in-house. The other is outsourcing part of it. So they get to watch and see and figure out, I'm going to cherry pick this, I'm going to do this. The fun part is they're starting off with the part of the process that neither of those companies have. Both of those companies are dependent on you getting the raw card and sending it to them. Fanatics, it seems like, is going to be starting with the raw card.
Right.
They're going to be starting with because they're the ones making the cards, right?
Correct.
So what they're going to focus on first is the deliverable, right? Hey, how are we going to get this card into the end consumer's hand? What does that have to do with distributors? What does that have to do with LCSs? Are we going to have products that are distribution channels for specific products, product specific? Are we just going to do the reverse auction, Dutch reverse oven model, whatever it's going to be?
Create a live shopping app.
Live shopping app. But we'll see how it goes. And then if the live shopping app is there, you got to think if it's successful enough, one of the models or a version of those models will work that, okay, you just broke this. We've scanned in what you got. Here are the cards you got in your break. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can click a button and have us send them to you. Or you can click a button and we can send them to Grading Company X. Maybe by that point in time, Grading Company X is a company that they own or that they established, right? Once it's back from Grading Company X, it's in your own collection. All right, you got this grade. Do you want us to send it back to you? Click this button. If not, do you want to send it to an auction house? All right, here's the options. And maybe the auction house is their own. Maybe it's just their own selling secondary market platform.
Well, they already sort of have a marketplace now. It's a little bit wonky, but they already have that.
It's there are a lot of questions that remain unanswered. And obviously this is one of the many steps towards, what I'm sure they're trying to build. It's exciting, man.
One of the funny narratives we have is sort of like this, like the tinfoil hat crew are watching from afar, judging anybody who's thinking about doing business with Fanatics, right? And like one of the posts that's going around was like, hey, look at DAP Sports, look at how much their channel has grown in subscribers and followers, but when they go live, they have 2 people on. Did they buy their followers? I'm surprised that people don't see the opportunity in that, right? Because if all of these accounts that are lobbying to work with Fanatics are all lobbying based on bought followers, what you're presented with is an opportunity to build a true community network, channel, newsletter, whatever type of community, whatever piece of content that builds a community, and potentially make the hobby a better place in the next 3, 4, 5 years. It sort of is another opportunity of a gold rush.
Sure. I take the tinfoil hat off my head and I put on my glasses and I look at Fanatics, and I probably will be the only one who says this because it's a huge conglomerate, huge company with a lot of money, and they spent a lot of money, but I do not envy the position that they're in. I think everybody does. Everybody looks at them and says, Fanatics, look, they got all the money in the world. They got all this stuff. My take on it is they're almost in a damned if you do, damned if you don't position, right? So are they supposed to be the gatekeepers of the organic following of a certain, brand? Are they supposed to be monitoring that and worrying about whether somebody paid for followers, which I don't even know how to do. So if you're looking for that, Fanatics, it's not me. Sorry. but you can see I have so few followers. If I paid for it, I really didn't get my money's worth. No, but I guess my point is there are so many people in the hobby, so many aspects of the hobby that I've run into myself who are all banking on Fanatics to save their bacon. That's a tough spot to be in. From my local store who says when Fanatics comes in, I'm going to have 3 times as many people in here, to the distributor who says Fanatics is going to take care of us too. Because even though we hear that Fanatics is going to try to do direct to consumer, we know that they understand the importance of a distributor. So we know that we're going to, be part of their workflow too. We know we're going to be part of what goes on. To all of the content creators that are out there that all think Fanatics is just coming with bags of cash to sponsor all of them, to all of the show promoters who say, if you think the hobby's big now, we're building it up now for the 3 times the amount of people who Fanatics are going to be bringing in, because while every fan is not a collector, every collector is a fan, and they're going to be converting all those people through the machine that is Fanatics. That's a heavy lift, man. I don't envy it. I'm sure they'll figure it out. But the whole hobby is basically kind of sitting on their hands saying, it's great now, but just wait till Fanatics does what Fanatics does,
I think they're going to do what's in their own best interest.
I mean,
and I think if you want to align with what they're doing, you need to think ahead with what their best interest will be.
Is there something wrong with that, though? Like,
no,
is there anybody
that's what
really
businesses
in the
do.
Hobby? Exactly. I mean, I don't think there's anybody in the hobby who doesn't. I mean, look, it's great to, to also look out for other people. I put a thing on my story the other day. If you're doing something, with the expectation of a return, you're doing business, not kindness, right? But that's the point. It's business. It is a business. They have investors. They have people. The goal here is not charity. The goal is to make money, and
especially off the get, because once you spend all this money, you have a lot of people looking very closely to where that money goes. And they're like, when am I getting my money back for us buying all these licenses, buying this, buying that? Like, and if X employee or X business unit isn't performing, they're going to be like, cut next. We need someone in here to get us our money back.
100% correct.
So I am starting a petition to change the name of the 49ers. Just the way that the Indians were changed, that was insulting, and the Redskins. So did you know this? We talk about the gold rush a lot. The effect of the gold rush was substantial. Whole indigenous societies were attacked and pushed off their lands by the gold seekers called 49ers.
Okay.
Did you know that? 49ers were the groups, the gold seekers, dare I say us, hobbyists, who pushed indigenous people off their land to go chase for gold. Did you know that?
No. Where did you get that from?
Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you my teacher and saying that's not a credible source? I need a better source.
I mean, it's Wikipedia. Listen, I will not challenge it unless I come up with a source of my own. But
Redskins. That name was changed because it was insulting to Native Americans. Cleveland Indians. I don't know who that insulted, but it was changed. It was changed to the Guardians. I don't know how that makes it any better. But if we've already gone this far, I didn't go this far to only go this far. I think it's time not to worry about Brock Purdy's elbow or Trey Lance's destroyed ankle or Garoppolo's smile on the sideline.
It's a friggin'
this right here.
I mean, it's the gold rush. Right? People went to California, 1848 and 49, right? 49, the gold rush. That's
exactly 1849, the peak year of the gold rush immigration.
Yeah. So
these are right under our nose. This team shouldn't even be allowed to play in the NFL for what they've done in their past. Do you agree or disagree? Luka Nation put it in the comments.
What the hell, man?
So I'll explain how this came up. I was explaining to my sister, I love history, learning about the gold rush, when it happened, what happened. And I was searching and I was reading about the gold rush. And then I was like, the 49ers. And it came up on Wikipedia. So I wanted to share. I obviously don't care if they're named 49ers. But I thought that was a cool thing.
Everybody, please comment and tell Andrew not to trust Wikipedia.
No, I mean, this is obviously legit.
What else you got? Is that enough? That's 50 minutes
sure.
in. We talk about some cards. I have a question for you.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So, guys, take a look at my post. I posted. We've all now agreed on the conclusion that Kobe's not top 5.
Is he top 5 all-time individual talent? No. Is he top 5 for what he was able to accomplish?
But we're not getting into Kobe.
Yes.
You talked about Luka. And guys, if you didn't listen to the Luka discussion, it was a great discussion. Talk about Luka. And, I made a comment at the end and said, all right, well, it depends who they pair him with. And you're like, well, Mark Cuban's not going to do that. He's not going to let him leave. He's not going to take care of him. The question that came up based on my comparison between Kobe and Luka, somebody commented, they said, would you think differently about Luka if you paired him with a prime Shaq? And obviously, that's a great comparison to Kobe because Kobe got a prime Shaq who won 3 straight finals MVPs for him. That's Kobe's first 3 rings. And the question is, and then I'm going to ask you a follow-up.
I would probably think less of him in the time that he played with Shaq. And then I would see, can you win without Shaq? Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I don't really understand the question. I feel like a little bit is left out.
No, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Forget about Kobe for a second. You're saying Luka is probably not going to win any championships, so ultimately in the pantheon of the NBA, he's going to be thought of not as the next LeBron like we're talking about him now, not in the same top 10 kind of conversation. He'd be thought of as somebody who was Ken Griffey Jr. or somebody but more like James Harden, somebody who's going to have great stats at the end of it, but is not going to have any championships. So the question is, if you paired him up with a prime Shaq, and that, I guess, resulted in him winning some championships.
That's the qualifier. That's the qualifier.
Think? And you're saying, I think less of him because he couldn't win them by himself. So LeBron, you could make the argument, had to go join a super team. But I guess what you're saying is even LeBron, Kobe, they won after that. They went and won one without the super team. They went and won one without. So would you require Luka, if he won a couple with a prime Shaq, to win one on his own with a ragtag bunch of, J.R.
So explain why this needs more qualification or elaboration. Do you remember in
commenter, you're terrible.
Remember in middle school algebra?
Yes.
Solving for 2 variables?
Yep.
That's what we're doing here. So you have, what would you think of Luka if he was joined with a prime Shaq? Well, the variable of joining a prime Shaq, it's actually 3 variables, is do they win? Do they lose? Do they stay the same? What actually happens? Right. So like it's unfinished. The question, the ask is what actually would happen if he had a prime Shaq?
Let's say he wins Let's say he wins at least 2 championships with Shaq. Because you're talking
if
about
he had
Luka
a prime
right
Shaq
Yeah.
on his team right now, they would be in the finals every year for the next however many years it's prime Shaq. But I don't know.
And then would you say
of Luka? My question back to this person is: have you ever seen a prime Shaq? A prime Shaq got to the finals with Penny Hardaway. I don't.
Well, it's probably even before his prime, but yeah.
So like, prime Shaq is the top 3 player of all time. It is unstoppable, insane force. Is prime Shaq. Dude, prime Shaq had incredible footwork, and he was huge, and he was a bully, man.
Couldn't shoot free throws, but that doesn't matter in today's NBA. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. All right, well, listen, it's just one of the comments that I saw on my post, guys. Go chime in. Kobe or Luka? Just kidding, but not.